Okay, this video is going to go over the basic Java concepts using the Ch2F program. And so you should have the Ch2F starting code in front of you and also a computer memory illustration paper as well. So you should have those two just like I have here. And we're going to write things on there, and this should be a resource paper for you. Even when you take the tests, this would be a good resource for you. We're going to cover quite a few concepts, and we're going to see how this goes. So first of all, you need line 7 you should be very familiar with, and this is the imports scanner class. To read input. All right, so make sure you write that in there. This imports the scanner class to read input, or to read input. So the thing is that this scanner class is in what's called a Java library. So when you download Java on your computer, there's a library, just like we have libraries. We go get the books. The books aren't in front of us until we go check them out from the library. And so that's what happens here. We're kind of, in a sense, we're checking out the scanner class, and just the basic understanding is just that you got to know that the scanner class you have to import in order to be able to write code that lets you read input from the user. All right, the other thing that goes with that is, and I'll write it, let me see if I can do that. Okay, this line 13, I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to write it up here. Line 13 is the declaration of the scanner object. So we should write that up there as well. This is the declaration of the scanner object, line 13. The object, the scanner object, is like if you go to a store and they have scanners in there where you can scan barcodes. It's like if you have a bunch of scanners sitting there, you can grab one. You grab an object, a scanner, and go and scan your groceries. Well, that's what this is. This is an object. It's like a scanner that you have at a store to go scan your groceries. So this is going to scan, though, user input. Now, its name is scan. And so notice how we use the name of this object when we scan input. And so notice down here that, let's put this, okay, if we take, this is the name of the scanner object, and we take that and we apply it in the line like this. So this is actually invoking the scanner object. So that's where it comes from. If we were to write in here, then we'd have to write in dot next line, and that's what Mrs. Wyman's class uses. Okay, so there's different ones that people use. Okay, the next thing that we want to deal with is variables, and that's what Chapter 2 is really all about. It's using variables and how to use variables. And so this is a very basic thing, and the problem is that students in Chapter 3 are struggling more, the ones that don't understand this Chapter 2 variable thing. And so it's very important to learn this in order to move on to Chapter 3. And so here's what happens with a variable. Then this would be a good thing for you to write up here as well. A variable actually, and I probably should have you probably should write somewhere, this is very important actually, a variable is a named memory location. It is a named memory location. So you will notice in our computer memory paper is that this is an illustration of the computer memory in your computer. In your computer you have storage places, storage locations, storage cells that are all in the computer memory. And they're empty until they get used. And so let's say that we have a bunch of empty cells over here. They're sitting here, they are actually serving no purpose at this time. But they're memory locations. They are locations where you can store or put your memory in. Remember, a memory, when you try to commit something to memory, you're trying to store it in your brain cells so that you can recall it later. And that's what these are. So we want to store it with memory or storage contents, data, so that we can use them later. All right, so the life of a variable, its birth is when it's declared. So, its birth is when it's declared. And right here, what you need to write down here, this is a variable declaration. This is when the variable is declared on line 15. And what does it mean? What does it mean to get born, so to speak, or to be declared? What it means is that a memory location is reserved. So one of these memory locations is going to be picked by the compiler. I don't know how it does it, but it's going to reserve one of these cells, one of these memory locations. And it's going to give it a name. So go right over here and take one of these cells and write sib name 1. Alright, so what you have here is this line of code. The string is a data type. Maybe I better back that up a little bit. Okay, the string is a data type. Now, it's very important that anytime I ask you what the data types are, that you be able to tell me. It's the foundational thing. And so this string is a data type. Well, that's the first item of a declaration, is the data type. So if I were to ask you, give me some other data types, you should be able to tell me int and double. And you should know also, you have to know, it's very important that you understand that a string is a group of characters. So here, for instance, this is a string called a string literal. In fact, this would be good to write on here. This is a string, lowercase, or string literal, which is a group of characters. And so that's what's here on the green. Now, a character is a letter or a number or a space or punctuation, So letters, numbers, etc. Anything that takes up space in here. So here's a group of characters, and if you were to count them, there would be a ton of them, but space is a character, apostrophe is a character, colon is a character, right? And the strings are always within quotation marks. The quotation marks aren't the string, they signify a string. So, what happens is a string with a capital S means the data type named string. And that tells you what is going to be inside of a memory location that has a data type of a string. So it's going to store things like letters, numbers that are with letters, or punctuate. You can store all those things. And you know here it's going to store the name of somebody. That's a group of characters. So you have a data type and you have a variable. So sibname1 is the name of the variable. We said a variable is a named memory location. Here's a memory location right here, but it's not named. This is a memory location that is named. Its name is sibname1. This is a named memory location, and this is what a variable is in a computer memory. Alright, so when the compiler sees a data type and a variable, it goes and reserves a memory location and gives it a name. Just like you call a restaurant and you reserve a table by giving them your name. It's the same idea. Alright, so declaring is the same thing as when you set a bowl down on the counter if you're going to eat cereal. So you take it out of the cupboard, take the bowl out of the cupboard, and you set it on the counter. By doing that, you have declared a specific storage container that's going to eventually have cereal and milk poured in it. And so you set it on the table, it's empty, but it's still a named storage location. You're declaring this is going to be used for my cereal, or maybe it's soup. And that's what this is right now. This is just an empty bowl. So the idea here is that here is a data type and a variable. That makes it a variable declaration. And what it will do is it causes the compiler to go over to a memory location and reserve it. So this one's going to be times run sib1. All right, so you should be writing this down. And this just means the number of times the first sibling ran last week. That's all that's saying. This is the number of times that the first sibling ran last week. All right, so what I need you to do is pause the video, and I need you to go reserve memory locations for this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and then come back to the video. Okay, so you should have now what I have on the right, where you have 6 memory locations that have been reserved and given a name. They're all empty, but they're ready to have something stored in them. They're like the bowl being set on the counter. The other thing I want to make sure we understand, that we're talking about the string stores words and things like that, has groups of characters. Ints store whole numbers, doubles store decimals. So that's something you've got to know and have memorized. All right. Now we go to the next line. Now we're going to take a look at these two lines of code right here. And the rest of these, there's going to be a group of lines like this. So what we want to do is, let's see, how do we want to do this? This pair of lines, what that does is it gets user input. So what you should put in here is that you should indicate that these two lines gets user input. So in my instructions, I'm going to say write code that obtains the user's name, that obtains the user's annual salary, that obtains how many cats the user owns. When I ask those questions, then that means you need two lines of code. And the first line of code is a prompt. Okay, so the reason why we're doing this is so that if you see something you're not sure what it is, then look on this paper and see if it's here. And so these two lines get user input. The first line of code is a prompt. We know it as a print statement. It's and remember, a print statement displays something on the screen. And so it will be displayed to the user so that the user knows that they need to type something. It's like if you were sitting next to a person you didn't know and you wanted to know their name. You have to say something. You have to ask them for their name. Well, that's what this is doing. This is just like a conversation. What's your name? What's their older sibling's first name? It's a prompt. A prompt that causes the user then to respond. So then the user is going to type a response. Let's just use a 3-letter word. Let's say Bob. So let's say that the user responds with the word Bob. Let's see, what can I do here?